Good morning, actually good afternoon. This is the Liberty North Psych, AP Psych. This is the afternoon live stream. So 5th period live stream on virtual Wednesday, February 3rd. So today we're going to be talking about actually finishing up our learning targets for the cognitive unit, and then the intelligence part. So again, we're going to be on learning targets. So again, the cognitive unit, which is memory, language, thought, and then we're going to finish up intelligence today. So we're going to be on learning targets 15 through 18, okay, which is also on Canvas. And then I sent pictures out this morning via Twitter of the board. So obviously you can scroll through the video as long as you want, but there's pictures on Twitter that you can use of the notes of the learning targets today. And then also don't forget your brain activity log and your code word. So if you're missing any parts of those, make sure you get those in as those have been entered into the grade book. So those are 100 points apiece. Make sure your define and apply for the cognition unit is done. Again, all that is on Canvas. So the topics that you can choose are there, and it's just one define and apply for unit 7 and 11. So again, we're kind of calling anything to do with cognition in the cognition unit. Okay. All right. I think that's about it. Okay. All right. So let's start with AP Learning Target 15. Again, I'll still be on Zoom after this is filmed. So if you have any questions or anything, then you can obviously just jump on the open Zoom link and we can discuss, or you can email me. Okay. All right. AP Learning Target 15, which is basically your name. So identify the contributions of key researchers in intelligence. So you already have 4, which are back up in Learning Target 14. Okay. The historic and contemporary theories in psych and intelligence. So we discussed Spearman, Sternberg, and Thurston and Gardner. Okay, so those 4 you should already have. And again, you can put these names in your AP notebook under names, or you can put them in the learning target either way. But again, you don't have to put them in both. Just make sure you know where they are for our quiz that's coming up next week. All right. Now, the bigger names, not that there are any insignificant names, but the bigger names are kind of today. So you have Alfred Binet on page 618. So I have the learning targets are in red. Got 2 more over here, and then the page numbers are in parentheses. Okay, so on page 618, you got 2 of the biggest names in intelligence. Alfred Binet, who is actually considered the father of intelligence testing. Binet was charged in the early 1900s by the French government to create a test that would actually group students together by mental age, because what has happened is for the first time, education was becoming public. Everybody could be educated. And so they were having a huge problem. The chronological kind of delineation of grades was not working. So, in America, we use kind of your age as delineation into your grade. So you kind of, as you get older, you kind of move up. In Europe, it's really not that way. They do it by score or by level or more by mental age, which kind of has a legacy to Binet. But the French finally went public with their education process. And so they're having everybody come into school now to be educated. And the problem was, if you were 10 years old and you're grouped together with other 10-year-olds, you could have somebody who was at the mental age of 15 and somebody who was at the mental age of 5. There was just such a huge gap because, again, if you weren't wealthy, you weren't able to be educated. So they charged Binet to create a test that would then identify the mental age of these children, and that they would then group them by mental age. So he did that and did it very successfully. And of course, then that legacy, of course, began to spread. And so, you have a lot of cultures that do that. Their education system and progression is not like ours by chronological age, okay? Then the Binet test actually got to the United States by Lewis Terman, okay? So Terman was a professor at Stanford University. And then he took Binet's test and revised it for America. And that's where we have the Stanford Binet, which is, again, probably one of the 2 biggest intelligence tests that we have in the world today. So And the Stanford-Binet was actually the standard IQ test before the Wechsler was developed, okay? But it's called Stanford-Binet because of Binet's legacy and his part of the test, and then Terman revising it at Stanford University, okay? On page 620, we have David Wechsler, obviously, who is the father of the Wechsler intelligence scales, which are the most prominent, reliable, valid intelligence tests that we have in the world today. So again, this week as we roll on and do different examples of more intelligence tests will be taken from the Wechsler. Our maze competition that we did was from the WISC, okay? So again, David Wechsler and his family immigrated to the United States from Germany. And then Wechsler set out and dedicated his life to creating a intelligence test that is both culturally relevant, because you have to have that cultural piece because culture kind of sets the standards for what's intelligent, but also it was universal in that it could be used in any country with any person. So we were severely lacking in those two areas, just not having both of those together in a test. So he set out, so he is the founder of the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, which again, if you were tested for PEAK in elementary school, you took the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale and the Wechsler Memory Scale, okay? All right, so very influential. So you kind of have, and the Stanford-Binet is still used today, but just it's not as prominent as the WACE, okay? And then you probably already have Galton, Francis Galton in your names on 617, but he is kind of the pioneering researcher in IQ, kind of the first one to really make it a passion, wrote some books about the genetics of intelligence, and also did some of the first twin studies in intelligence, okay, which was pretty cool. All right, so those are the 4 additional names that you need to have. So that's a total of 8 there, okay? All right, learning target 16, which basically says, explain how psychologists design tests, including standardization, reliability, and validity. Hopefully you are extremely versed in reliability and validity with your journal critique and then also our research chapter, a unit that we've already talked about. Basically every so many years, I think it's 5 to 7 years, you know, your prominent, the Wechsler and the Binet are basically re-standardized, okay, which basically means that they're given to a sample, a large sample of people to take a pre-test, take a practice test. And then basically we're going to standardize those results and past results, so previous revisions of the same test. You know, we're going to standardize the procedures and the results, okay? So let me show you this real quick and we'll come back to it. But so here's the standardized bell curve for the Wechsler currently, okay? So what they do is they give it to thousands of people, and then they also go to previous revisions that have taken the test. Sorry. And what they do then is they standardize their scores based on the results that the people get, and they get from people taking the pretest, okay? So again, 100 in IQ means mental age equals chronological age, okay? So that's always the number that every intelligence test is kind of standardized on. So, you know, not every revision do people score the same, or is the average score the same. So they have to adjust the bell curve and the scores according to where 100 is always mental age equals chronological age, okay? So a lot of standardize the test to make sure the procedures are sound, and also to make sure our scores are standardized and fit the normal bell curve, okay? All right, so I think the WACE is on its 7th revision, maybe. So again, when the 8th revision comes up, they're gonna look at the results from the 7th, standardize those, and then they're gonna give it to a pretest group. And they'll standardize those and then make those mesh together so that they get the standardized procedures and scores for the 8th version when it comes out, okay? All right, reliability, again, every time you take the test, you should get consistent results. So if I or you take the WACE or the Stanford-Binet, and it doesn't matter how many years are apart, you know, we should get the same scores relatively. So again, the last time I took the WACE was 1998. If I take it now in 2021, my results should be pretty reliable, meaning that I should score around the same number. So again, when you get your results from taking a test, they give you a ±5 or a ±3, meaning that, you know, you kind of have this range that you're 95% of the time going to score in. So, and you definitely get that with the WACE. It's pretty reliable. So your score is always going to be within a few points of each other, no matter how many years are apart from when you take it. Okay. So I want to make sure I get consistent results for everybody who takes it. And then validity. We want to make sure that we're measuring and predicting intelligence. Okay. We're not measuring anything else. And I probably think the WACE does that a little bit better. But again, there are consequences to that. It's a very long test. It's a very long and tedious process. But again, the idea is, am I measuring the cultural component of intelligence, and am I measuring the universal component of intelligence? So, am I measuring all aspects of intelligence, your ability to learn, to solve problems, and to be mentally flexible? Or am I just measuring one part of it? Those are kind of all things we look at with validity. But main thing is validity is, does it measure what it's supposed to measure? So does the intelligence test measure intelligence? Okay. All right. So those are the three big vocab terms, and they're in your vocab, but just so you kind of understand how they work, hopefully you have these two down. Okay. All right. Then 17 and 18 are over here. All right. And what we have here, I'm just going to slide this over so we can see it a little bit better. All right. So what we have here is 17 and 18, which are interpret the meaning of intelligence scores in terms of the normal curve. So this is our normal curve. And describe relevant labels related to intelligence testing. Okay, so, all right, so this is what we have. So this is page 621, 629 to 630. All right, and this is our normal bell curve, kind of rudely or crudely drawn by me, but hopefully it gets the point across. So here are your scores down at the bottom. This is the normalized standardized curve for the Wechsler. Okay, this is the one that's in your book. So again, 100 means that my mental age equals my chronological age. So I'm 18 and I'm mentally functioning at age 18 as well. Okay, so this is where we like everybody to be. And then anything above this is going to be my mental age is higher than my chronological age. And then anything below that is going to be my mental age is below my chronological age. Okay, so as you can see, 68% of all testers will score between 85 and 115. And then 95% will actually score between 70 and 130. Okay. Okay, and then I had the percentages up here just so you know. So again, mental age equals chronological age. Mental age is above chronological age. Mental age is below chronological age. Okay. All right. So, and then I'll go over some of our testing that we did with the WISC and kind of show you where your scores would be here in a minute. And I'll leave this up then as we proceed, and as we do kind of different examples of different intelligence tests, we'll kind of we'll standardize it and tell you what it means based on this bell curve. Okay. All right. IQ testing, labels, and diagnosis. So again, intelligence tests are mainly used for needed labels or diagnosis in science or psychology or neuroscience. Okay. So like if you remember, Amy Cuddy, with our power posing video, had her car accident when she was 19, and they said that they assessed her after she woke up, and that her intelligence had dropped significantly. So she was kind of up in here, and then she was down in here after the accident, which is why they said that it's most likely that she probably won't graduate from college. She's going to have a permanent brain disability, but obviously she overcame that, which is a great story. But that's kind of how IQ is used. It's used to diagnose and label people who are prodigies and extremely talented in intelligence, but also people who have disabilities in intelligence. Okay, so 70 is kind of the mark. So if you score 70 or under, you are that's the criteria for diagnosing someone with an intellectual disability. Okay, so the book also talks about Down syndrome. Again, you have to be at a certain intelligence level for that diagnosis to kind of be there, okay, or to be labeled. 125 and above is generally the mark for gifted. So again, if you were tested in elementary school using the WISC, I think generally you had to be 125, which is like the top 5% or higher on the test to be labeled gifted. We have talked about prodigy. which is unmeasurable. Okay, so if you ace the intelligence test, or your score is so high that it's, you know, over here in this 0.5%, you're going to be identified as a prodigy. Okay. Now we've talked about savants, and savants are, it's different. It's tricky because, again, they have one ability, right? So their entire intelligence is not higher. That's a prodigy. But they have one area of intelligence which is just, you know, over here, but the rest generally can be down here or lower. So like the real story of the Rain Man, you know, his memory and all his memory tests were way up here. He was prolific in memory, but he was scoring and everything else, he scored below 70. So, you know, that's kind of what you have with the savant. Again, one major mental ability and gift, but then it comes with a disability as well. Okay, and usually it's the disability, the brain injury, the birth defect or whatever that kind of stimulates, that we believe stimulates the outstanding mental ability. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the bell curve here, and let me use the example of our maze running, if you will, our maze competition. So I tweeted out the results. So again, what we had is A day, the females dominated, winning 4-2, and B day, the males dominated, winning 4-2. So in the end, it was 6-6. Okay. But we had some classes and genders that scored really well. So 6-hour B-Day males were, you know, incredible. The best functioning group that I had. So they all were in the 20s, and there was only one mistake, which is, you know, this is going to be extremely high. Then we had 5th A females. Okay. So here, and then we had 3rd A females. Okay, now the 5th A females actually had the fastest time, but they had more mistakes. The 3rd A females had the fewer mistakes and a little bit worse time. So, but those would be the two best female scoring groups. Okay, now if we look at those groups, and then we go back over here, and we want to try to standardize them on the intelligence bell curve. Okay, so if you scored in the 20s with 0 or under 3 mistakes, you know, your score is going to be pretty rarefied. It's going to be over here just on this subtest. Okay, so you're going to be looking at 145 to 155 there. Okay, so that top male group, 6th hour, you know, performed way over here. So they all were in the 20s, and there was only one mistake. So 2 of them had 0 mistakes. So, and we had some females that did that as well. So if you're in the 20s with 0 to 3 mistakes, you're going to be, you know, you're going to be over here. Okay. My highest scoring female group had an average of 2 minutes, or a total of around 2 minutes, and then varying from 7 to 14 mistakes. So, you know, that's going to put them kind of in the 120-ish range probably here. Okay. Now we also had other scores, but basically to kind of put in perspective. So if it took you around 2.5 minutes, and then you're able to do that with 6 or under mistakes, you know, that's going to put you right in around 100. That's kind of the 100 mark, okay? Just on this subtest. So that's kind of, again, by far, most scores are at 100 or higher, okay, on this individual one, okay? Now, again, that's in context because the practice one I gave you was from a long, long time ago. It was the last maze. So if you got to the last maze, you know, your IQ score is definitely going to probably be 120-ish or higher. Okay. So, you know, keep that in context as well, because you are on the hardest maze. So you have to kind of give yourself some time there as well. Okay. All right. So then any further intelligence tests that we take, we'll kind of, at the end, we'll kind of standardize the scores, and I'll kind of tell you kind of the numbers that you're looking at and what they equal there. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're done. So again, don't forget, you've got a define and apply activity to do for this unit, which again is just, I already have the topics listed for you there on Canvas, so just do those. And then again, we'll plan on having our big quiz next week. And then between now and then, since we're done with the learning targets, you know, we'll be spending our time watching some videos and doing some examples of intelligence testing, just so everybody, and then with those, we'll discuss aspects that we have talked about on the board today, whether it be the standardization process and some of the famous names that we have in intelligence, or whether it be the bell curve and also the relevant labels. We're going to watch a video of Daniel Tammet, who is considered a prodigy and a prodigious savant. We're going to watch an interview with David Letterman with him, which is pretty fascinating. Okay, so we'll look at some other case studies. All right. If you have any questions, jump on the open class Zoom today till class ends about 1:40 or school ends about 1:40. And then don't forget to email me also. Okay. All right. Have a good virtual Wednesday. Get outside and enjoy the sun.